Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The future that once seemed so certain for the bold and the beautiful suddenly feels dangerously fragile, and at the center of it all stands Will Spencer, caught between the woman he desperately wants to hold on to and the ghosts of emotions he can no longer pretend have disappeared. Every time Will looks at Electra Forrester, he sees the possibility of a fresh start, a chance to rewrite all the mistakes and heartbreak that have followed them through months of emotional chaos. But hope becomes harder to hold on to when RJ Forrester continues to linger so closely around Electra, constantly finding his way into her orbit with quiet confidence and undeniable familiarity. Their growing closeness hangs in the air like a storm cloud over Will's future, forcing him to confront a painful truth he has tried to ignore for far too long. If he does not fight for Electra now, he may lose her forever. And in a world where love is always tangled with betrayal, timing can mean the difference between happily ever after and devastating heartbreak. As the tension quietly builds, Will finds himself spiraling deeper into emotional confusion, because even while trying to focus entirely on Electra, another woman still occupies a hidden corner of his heart. Melissa Dillon remains impossible to forget. No matter how much Will tries to bury those lingering feelings beneath romantic promises and hopeful plans for the future, memories of Dillon continue to haunt him in unexpected moments. There is still warmth there, still unresolved affection lingering beneath the surface, and Will knows it. Yet instead of confronting those emotions honestly, he pushes them aside, convincing himself that Electra is where his future belongs. He wants stability, certainty, and a love strong enough to survive the endless drama that has surrounded them all. But deep down, Will senses that unresolved feelings have a way of resurfacing when people least expect them, especially in a town where old flames never truly stay extinguished. Then comes the moment that changes everything. Somewhere between stolen glances and another painfully intimate interaction between Electra and RJ, Will witnesses something that shakes him to his core. Maybe it is the way Electra smiles around RJ, softer and freer than she has smiled with Will in weeks. Maybe it is the ease between them, the kind of comfort that cannot be forced or bought with grand gestures. Whatever the moment is, it strikes Will like a punch to the chest, igniting a wave of fear so overwhelming that he can barely breathe through it. Suddenly, the possibility of losing Electra no longer feels distant or theoretical. It feels real, immediate, terrifying. And in that emotional panic, Will begins convincing himself that he has to do something dramatic before it is too late. For Will, love has always been tied to passion, spectacle, and emotional risk. And now he starts believing that only something enormous can save his relationship. He reflects on every obstacle he and Electra have already survived together, every misunderstanding, every painful conflict, every emotional wound they somehow managed to endure. In his mind, surviving all of that must mean their love is worth fighting for. It must mean destiny is still on their side. So Will begins imagining a future that feels almost cinematic in its perfection, a future where one unforgettable moment changes everything between them forever. And slowly, an idea begins taking shape in his heart, dangerous, hopeful, and reckless all at once. What if the answer is marriage? The possibility consumes him. Will starts envisioning an extravagant proposal unlike anything Electra has ever experienced, determined to prove once and for all that she is the only woman he truly wants. With the power of the Spencer fortune behind him, he imagines selecting the biggest, brightest diamond money can buy, a ring dazzling enough to symbolize the life he wants to build beside her. But it would not stop there. Will would want every detail to feel magical, every second designed to sweep Electra into a dream she could never forget. Candlelight flickering against the night sky, breathtaking music echoing softly in the background, flowers everywhere, luxury surrounding them from every direction. The kind of romantic fantasy that feels pulled straight from a fairy tale. In Will's mind, this proposal would not simply be about asking a question. It would be about proving devotion, proving commitment, proving that despite all the chaos and uncertainty, his love for Electra is real. And so the vision becomes clearer. Will sees himself dropping to one knee, his heart pounding violently in his chest as he asks Electra to become his wife. In that imagined moment, everything else disappears. The tension with RJ, the unresolved feelings for Dylan, the endless drama that has shadowed their relationship. All that remains is hope. Hope that Electra will look into his eyes and choose him completely. Hope that one yes could erase every doubt and finally secure the future he has been fighting for. For a fleeting second, it almost feels possible that love might actually conquer everything standing in their way. But in true The Bold and the Beautiful fashion, nothing is ever that simple. Beneath the fantasy of diamonds and candlelight lies the painful reality that Electra herself may no longer be certain about the relationship. The deeper Will sinks into his romantic plans, the more fragile the situation truly becomes. Because grand gestures cannot erase emotional scars overnight, and they cannot magically silence the doubts growing inside Electra's heart. After everything they have endured together, after every complication and painful twist that has pulled them apart, Electra may suddenly find herself standing at a crossroads she cannot ignore any longer. Instead of feeling swept away by romance, she could experience a devastating moment of clarity. In that heartbreaking instant, Electra may finally admit what she has been too afraid to say out loud. Maybe she cannot move past the drama. Maybe the trust between them has been damaged too deeply. Maybe she loves Will, but not enough to promise forever. The possibility alone is enough to shatter everything Will has been desperately trying to hold together. And if Electra looks at him with tears in her eyes and tells him she cannot accept his proposal, not now, maybe not ever, the emotional fallout could be catastrophic. The extravagant night Will imagined as the beginning of their future together could instead become the moment his entire world collapses in front of him. A rejection like that would leave Will devastated beyond words, forcing him to question not only his relationship with Electra, but his entire future. Suddenly, all the confidence and determination driving his proposal plans could vanish, replaced by heartbreak, confusion, and unbearable loneliness. And when people in this world fall apart emotionally, they often return to the ones who once made them feel safe. That is exactly what could happen next. Broken and emotionally vulnerable, Will may find himself drawn back toward Dylan, seeking comfort from the woman who still quietly holds a piece of his heart. Old feelings could resurface with dangerous intensity, especially now that his dream of a future with Electra may be slipping through his fingers. At the same time, another emotional connection may grow stronger in the shadows. If Electra rejects Will and finds herself emotionally overwhelmed by the fallout, RJ could naturally step into the role of her protector and confidant. The closeness Will feared from the very beginning could intensify even further, creating a painful new reality where RJ becomes the person Electra leans on most. And for Will, watching that bond strengthen after losing her could become almost unbearable. Every lingering look between them, every comforting conversation, every quiet moment of support would only deepen the heartbreak he already feels. Still, fans of The Bold and the Beautiful know one thing better than anyone. This world thrives on emotional curveballs, explosive romance, and dramatic marriage proposals that change lives forever. Whether Will's proposal becomes the beginning of an unforgettable love story or the devastating end of one remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the emotional storm surrounding Will, Electra, RJ, and Dylan is only growing more intense. Secrets, fears, lingering feelings, and impossible choices are all colliding at once, and the fallout could change every relationship involved. As the pressure builds and hearts continue to pull in conflicting directions, viewers are left wondering whether love will survive the chaos, or whether another devastating heartbreak is waiting just around the corner. The emotional aftershocks of Will Spencer's possible proposal refusal would not fade quietly. Instead, they would ripple outward through every relationship connected to him, turning private heartbreak into a chain reaction capable of changing multiple lives at once. In the days following such a devastating moment, the glamorous lights and romantic atmosphere of that unforgettable evening would likely become painful memories haunting both Will and Electra from opposite sides of the emotional battlefield. What was supposed to symbolize forever could instead become another tragic reminder that love alone is not always enough to heal the damage caused by mistrust, jealousy, and emotional confusion. And for Will, the silence that follows rejection might hurt even more than the words themselves. Because once the shock settles in, he would be forced to confront a terrifying possibility. Maybe he never truly understood what Electra needed from him at all. The deeper Will sinks into that emotional spiral, the more vulnerable he becomes to unresolved feelings he spent so long trying to suppress. Melissa Dillon's presence would begin creeping back into his life almost naturally, not through some dramatic declaration, but through quiet moments of comfort when he feels most alone. Perhaps she is the one who answers his late-night call when he cannot stop replaying Electra's rejection in his mind. Perhaps she listens without judgment while he tries to make sense of how everything fell apart so quickly. And in those emotionally raw conversations, something dangerous could begin happening between them. Old chemistry that never completely disappeared would slowly reignite beneath the surface, fueled by heartbreak, nostalgia, and emotional vulnerability. The connection Will tried so hard to deny could suddenly feel impossible to ignore anymore. At the same time, Electra herself would not escape the emotional consequences of her decision. Even if rejecting Will feels like the right choice in the moment, that does not mean it would come without pain. She may spend long nights questioning whether she made a terrible mistake, torn between relief and guilt as memories of their relationship continue flooding her thoughts. There would still be love in her heart for Will, but love complicated by exhaustion, uncertainty, and the crushing weight of everything they have endured together. Sometimes walking away from someone is not about the absence of feelings. Sometimes it is about finally admitting that the relationship itself has become emotionally unsustainable. And for Electra, realizing that truth could be one of the hardest decisions she has ever made. Yet while one relationship fractures, another emotional bond quietly grows stronger in the background. R.J. Forrester's support would become increasingly important to Electra during her lowest moments, especially as the fallout from Will's heartbreak intensifies. Unlike the emotional turbulence that often surrounds Will, R.J. offers something calmer, steadier, and more grounded. He listens instead of pushing. He comforts instead of demanding answers. And slowly, almost without either of them realizing it at first, Electra could begin finding peace in RJ's presence, in a way she has not experienced for a very long time. Their connection would no longer feel like harmless friendship or innocent closeness. It would begin carrying emotional weight, the kind that changes everything once acknowledged aloud. For Will, seeing that growing closeness would feel like watching his worst fears come true in real time. Every glance shared between RJ and Electra would become another reminder that he may have already lost the woman he fought so desperately to keep. The jealousy that once motivated him to propose could evolve into something darker, regret mixed with bitterness and emotional desperation. He may start wondering if he pushed too hard, too fast, trying to force a future Electra was never emotionally ready for. And perhaps the cruelest part of all would be realizing that the proposal itself may have accelerated her emotional withdrawal instead of saving the relationship. The grand romantic gesture he believed could secure forever may ultimately become the very thing that pushed Electra away completely. Meanwhile, the emotional tension surrounding Dillon could become even more complicated as Will gravitates closer to her again. Dillon may initially try to protect herself, fully aware that Will's heart is wounded and emotionally unstable after Electra's rejection. She knows what it feels like to love someone who is torn between different emotional paths, and the last thing she wants is to become a temporary refuge while he figures out his feelings. But emotions rarely follow logic, especially when two people share unresolved history and lingering affection. The more time they spend together, the harder it becomes to deny that something still exists between them. There may still be unfinished chapters in their story, chapters neither of them truly closed. And in classic The Bold and the Beautiful fashion, every emotional decision would carry the potential for even bigger consequences waiting just beyond the horizon. Families could become divided as loyalties shift between relationships. Old rivalries could reignite under the pressure of heartbreak and betrayal. Secrets buried beneath months of emotional chaos might finally rise to the surface at the worst possible moment. Because in this world, no heartbreak ever stays private for long. Every painful choice creates another emotional wave, and every romantic ending often becomes the beginning of an even more explosive new chapter. As the dust slowly settles, viewers may find themselves questioning whether Will's proposal was truly about love or fear. Fear of losing Electra, fear of being replaced by RJ, fear of facing the truth about his lingering feelings for Dylan. Sometimes people rush toward forever not because they are certain, but because they are terrified of what happens if they stand still long enough to lose everything. And if that is the emotional truth hiding beneath Will's grand romantic gesture, then his heartbreak may have been inevitable from the very beginning. Still, nothing in The Bold and the Beautiful remains predictable for long. Relationships shift overnight. Broken hearts heal in unexpected places. Former lovers reunite when nobody sees it coming, while seemingly perfect romances collapse under the weight of hidden truths. Whether Electra eventually reconsiders, whether RJ and Electra grow closer, or whether Dylan becomes Will's path toward emotional healing once again, one thing remains absolutely certain. The emotional storm surrounding these four lives is far from over. In true soap opera fashion, the next twist may already be waiting just around the corner, ready to change everything once again. As emotions continue colliding beneath the glamorous surface of Los Angeles high society, the fragile balance between Will, Electra, RJ, and Dylan threatens to unravel completely. What once looked like a simple love triangle has now transformed into something far more emotionally dangerous, where every decision carries consequences capable of reshaping multiple futures at once. For Will Spencer, the pain of rejection would not disappear overnight. It would follow him everywhere, in the quiet silence of empty rooms, in memories of the proposal he believed would save everything, and in the crushing realization that love cannot be secured through desperation alone. No matter how much wealth, romance, or effort he poured into that unforgettable night, none of it could guarantee Electra's heart was still fully his. And the more that truth settles into him, the more emotionally unsteady he becomes. At first, Will may try convincing himself that Electra simply needs time. He may cling to hope that the rejection was not permanent, that eventually she will remember everything they shared and find her way back to him. But hope becomes increasingly difficult to hold on to once he starts noticing how naturally Electra gravitates toward RJ. Their connection no longer feels accidental. There is warmth there now, a growing emotional intimacy built through trust and understanding rather than dramatic promises or desperate gestures. RJ becomes the person who calms Electra's fears instead of intensifying them, and that difference may slowly begin changing how she sees her future. Around RJ, life feels quieter, safer, less exhausting, and after months of emotional chaos, that sense of peace could become impossible for Electra to ignore. For Electra, the emotional conflict deepens with every passing day. Rejecting Will may have been necessary, but it does not erase the guilt she feels watching him fall apart afterward. Part of her still cares deeply for him, still remembers the passion and intensity that once made their relationship feel impossible to resist. Yet another part of her knows she cannot keep sacrificing her emotional stability just to protect his heart. There comes a point when even love becomes overshadowed by emotional exhaustion, and Electra may finally realize she has reached that point. The realization would devastate her in ways few people around her fully understand, because walking away from someone you once imagined forever with is its own kind of heartbreak. And while Electra struggles with that emotional burden, Will drifts further into uncertainty, pulled toward the familiar comfort of Melissa Dillon. Their reconnection would not happen in one explosive moment. Instead, it would unfold slowly through vulnerable conversations, lingering eye contact, and emotional honesty neither of them allowed themselves to embrace before. Dillon sees the side of Will that others often miss. Not the wealthy Spencer heir, not the impulsive romantic constantly chasing dramatic solutions, but the wounded man beneath all of it. Around her, Will no longer has to pretend he has everything under control. He can admit his fears, his regrets, and the painful confusion tearing him apart inside. And that emotional openness could reignite feelings stronger than either of them expected. Still, Dillon would remain cautious. She knows how easily heartbreak can blur emotional boundaries, and she refuses to become nothing more than Will's escape from losing Electra. Even if part of her still loves him, she would need proof that his feelings are genuine and not simply fueled by loneliness or rejection. That uncertainty creates its own emotional tension between them, because every moment of closeness carries unanswered questions lingering beneath the surface. Is Will truly moving forward, or merely running away from pain? And perhaps even Will himself no longer knows the answer. Meanwhile, RJ's growing role in Electra's life could begin attracting attention from those around them. Quiet whispers may spread through family gatherings and Forrester hallways as people start noticing the undeniable chemistry building between them. What once looked innocent now carries emotional significance impossible to overlook. Their shared smiles linger longer, their conversations become more personal, and slowly, the emotional walls between them begin disappearing altogether. For RJ, this connection may feel both exciting and terrifying at the same time, because getting closer to Electra means risking conflict not only with Will, but with the complicated history already surrounding all of them. The emotional tension finally reaches another breaking point when Will witnesses yet another intimate moment between Electra and RJ, a moment far too personal to dismiss as friendship anymore. Maybe it is a comforting embrace that lasts a little too long. Maybe it is the way Electra looks at RJ with softness she no longer gives Will. Whatever the moment is, it hits Will harder than anything before it. In that instant, the reality he has been trying to deny becomes impossible to escape. Electra is slipping away from him completely. And worse still, she may already be opening her heart to someone else. That realization could trigger an entirely new emotional spiral for Will, one fueled not only by heartbreak, but by humiliation and regret. He may begin questioning every choice he made leading up to the failed proposal. Maybe he ignored warning signs because he was too desperate to believe in a happy ending. Maybe he confused intensity with stability. Maybe deep down, he always sensed Electra was emotionally pulling away, but refused to face it because losing her felt unbearable. The weight of those realizations would crush him emotionally, forcing him into painful self-reflection he has avoided for far too long. Yet even amid all that heartbreak, the possibility of redemption still lingers quietly beneath the chaos. Because in the unpredictable world of the bold and the beautiful, emotional endings rarely stay final forever. People change, hearts soften, feelings evolve in unexpected directions. Today's heartbreak can become tomorrow's reunion, while new romances can collapse just as quickly as they begin. Whether Will eventually finds clarity with Dillon, whether Electra fully embraces her growing connection with RJ, or whether another shocking twist changes everything once again, The emotional stakes continue rising with every passing moment. And somewhere beneath all the glamour, betrayal, romance, and heartbreak lies the painful truth connecting all four of them. Every single person involved is searching for the same thing: stability, trust, a love that feels safe enough to survive the storms constantly threatening to tear their lives apart. But in a world where emotions shift as quickly as loyalties, finding that kind of lasting happiness may prove far more difficult than any of them ever imagined.